Which is better, the Motorola Edge 2025 or the Motorola Edge 2024? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Motorola Edge 2025 versus the Motorola Edge 2024. Now, I've made a lot of videos already about these phones here on the channel, and for a really good reason. The Edge series from Motorola has been a top seller. These phones have been pushed very heavily at the carriers, and in many situations, and especially at Metro by T-Mobile, for example, these phones are even being offered for free if you're switching in from another carrier. Now, the Motorola Edge 2025 is still pretty recent to the market. This phone was launched in June of this year, but I'm definitely expecting this phone to be very popular, just like we saw with the 2024 model. Now, in this video, I want to do two things. I want to show you the differences between these two devices, but then also I want you to take into account that if there is a major discount on the 2024 model, how this phone is actually pretty similar in many ways to the 2025, so I probably would go for this over this. But on the other hand, if there is a specific feature with the Motorola Edge 2025 that really stands out to you that you can't get with the 2024, then I suppose this phone is the worthy option of the two to go for. But anyway, let's get started. Now, the first thing is the displays of these two devices. Now, both phones do have curved edge displays. However, this time around, with the Motorola Edge 2025, they really took that curve to a whole new level. This is much more curved compared to its predecessor, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Fortunately, both of these phones have excellent looking displays, but just know that if you're not really a fan of having a curved display, you're certainly getting that even more so here with the 2025. Another difference is that with the 2025 model, the display itself is larger at 6.7 inches compared to 6.6 inches with the Motorola Edge 2024. Also, with the 2025 model, we're getting better quality glass here on the display, with this featuring Corning Gorilla Glass 7i compared to Corning Gorilla Glass 3. Now, 3 is still very durable. I wouldn't worry at all if you're putting the phone face flat. Obviously, don't throw the phone at the floor or anything like that. But this phone is still very durable. It's just that they've taken that durability to a new level here with the 2025 model. Now, both of these phones do have OLED displays. You probably already noticed that the colors are super bold here. They really just look incredible. Things really pop. And when you're first looking at the displays of these phones, even though they're meant to be mid-range devices, these phones do feel like premium flagship smartphones. They really do feel a lot higher end than they technically actually are. And that definitely has to do with these excellent OLED displays. Now, with the Motorola Edge 2025, this display is 120 Hz refresh rate. However, with the 2024 model, this is actually 144 Hz. Now, 120 Hz is still really good as it is. It is technically a downgrade, though, compared to the predecessor, and really even 144 Hz is kind of an insane feature to have here. I mean, even the Galaxy S25 Ultra is 120 Hz, not 144, like we're getting with this device. So I wouldn't necessarily consider that a big downgrade, but it is still technically a downgrade. Now, with the Motorola Edge 2025, we're getting a PPI of 444 compared to 402. Both phones do feature 20:9 aspect ratios, so they are more of a narrow but taller form factor. And then with the Motorola Edge 2025, we're getting a 92% screen-to-body ratio compared to 90.2% with the 2024 model of the phone. So these phones really, even side by side, look nearly the same size. They look very similar, and I'm actually glad that's the case because instead of really changing things from the 2024, they just made things just slightly better here with the 2025. Certainly, I can never complain about having a little bit more screen real estate with that display being a little bit larger here, so I'm definitely happy about that. Now, up top here in both phones, there are hole punches to the front cameras, and the front camera on the 2025 is 50 megapixels versus 32 megapixels. Also with these phones, we're getting a lot of internal storage. So both phones do feature 256 gigabytes of storage, but neither phone does feature micro SD card expansion. So if you are one of those people that really wants an Android device where you can add in an SD card, then just know that you can't do that here with either phone. And that's pretty much the case for most Android devices nowadays. There still are a decent amount of really low-end phones that do support microSD card expansion, but definitely none of the flagships support it anymore, and it's certainly a feature that's more on the way out. But I am glad at least that we are getting so much internal space with both phones, with them having 256. Now, interestingly, the brand new Google Pixel 10, the base model of the Pro model of the phone, only has 128 gigabytes. So we're literally getting double the amount of storage here compared to the Google Pixel 10, despite these phones being way cheaper in comparison. Another nice surprise with these devices is that they both feature wireless charging at 15 watts. Now, if you do want to put a MagSafe case on these phones, then you can technically use them with a MagSafe charger. So that's also a nice bonus to have as well, but there are no built-in magnets or anything like that. And then both phones do feature in-display fingerprint sensors. We'll try this out first with the Motorola Edge 2024. And there you go, it's very fast. Now we'll give it a try with the 2025. And it is also very quick here. So definitely glad that both phones do have in-display fingerprint sensors, and they are nice and fast and responsive. And in addition to that, both phones do have Face Unlock as well. So I do appreciate that we are getting multiple options here with both of these phones. Now, one of the biggest differences from one generation to the other definitely has to be the cameras. So you probably noticed already some visual differences. We're getting 4 circles here with the Edge 2025 compared to 3 circles with the predecessor. Now, one of those, of course, is the flash, which is now in one of the circles, but there is one additional camera. So this time around, we're actually gaining a telephoto camera with the Motorola Edge 2025. So it's a 10 megapixel camera with a 3x optical zoom, and then the ultra wide also got updated to 50 megapixels, up from 13 megapixels, and then both phones do have 50 megapixel main cameras. Now here's how things look on the camera apps on both devices. So we've got the main camera right there. Then from there, we can go over to 0.5 on both phones and access the ultra wide. So as you can see, we can fit a lot more content into a single frame. Both phones do have this macro mode, but it's really just using the ultra wide camera to kind of mimic macro. But then the new feature, like I mentioned, with the Edge 2025 is where it says 3 right there. See how that's not here on the predecessor? So if you go there, you can see we're really zoomed in, and that is an actual telephoto camera. So you can, of course, zoom in with the 2024, but it's just going to be a digital zoom. So it's just cropping in, whereas with the telephoto camera here, that's actual zoom. That's real optical zoom here. So definitely really awesome. And then I'll flip around to the front-facing cameras in both phones. There's me right there. So very clearly here, we're getting an upgraded camera system with the Motorola Edge 2025, and I'm really glad to see that. And then with both phones, we are getting 4K video recording with both the front and rear cameras, which is great. And then both phones do have 8 gigabytes of RAM. However, a big difference this year is the processors. So with the Motorola Edge 2024, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7S Gen 2, compared to the Motorola Edge 2025, which has the MediaTek Dimensity 7400 Ultra. So we're switching here from Snapdragon to MediaTek. And both of those processors are meant to be mid-range options. So neither are nearly as fast as the best of the best from both brands. But I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6 here, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now. But I got a single core score with the Edge 2024 being a bit lower compared to the 2025, but actually still pretty similar. And then you can see the multi-core scores are also pretty similar as well. So I would say in that aspect, it's pretty much a tie. I don't know why they switched from one to the other. Maybe they got a better wholesale deal or something on the MediaTek chips. Who knows? I'm not really sure. But it is a difference, that's for sure. And then also, we're getting a bigger battery with the Motorola Edge 2025. This phone features a 5,200 milliamp hour internal battery compared to just 5,000 milliamp hours. And then both phones do feature 68 watt fast charging. So that's super impressive. I'm really glad to see that. You know I love fast charging if you've been following my channel at all. And 68 watts is really incredible. That's super fast. Now the overall hardware and layout of things are pretty similar in both phones. However, we've got this extra microphone on the Motorola Edge 2025. Both phones though have this multi-purpose button on the upper left side here. We also have volume up and volume down and the power buttons on the right side. Then up top here, both phones have noise-canceling microphones. And then on the bottom of both phones, we have the SIM card slot. We have the microphones on both. We have the USB-C port. And then we have the main speaker. And these phones both have stereo audio, but we're going from Snapdragon sound to Dolby Atmos instead. Now, those are all really just buzzwords. Of course, there's different technology behind them, but I just want to let you know about that. And then as far as the materials, both phones have aluminum on the sides and then vegan leather on the back. And I actually really like this material. I love that Motorola has been sticking with it. You can see that it kind of looks like leather, but it's actually very durable. And I appreciate too that you can't really see any fingerprints with these materials. So I'm a big fan of vegan leather. I think it's a great approach, much better than having those glossy finishes where you can see every fingerprint and the phones always look bad. So good job Motorola when it comes to the materials. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I feel like it's not a massive redesign going from one generation to the other, but on the other hand, there are still some nice features, such as that telephoto camera, that have been added to the Motorola Edge 2025. So I would say again, in general, if you can get the 2024 for a great deal, then go for it. But on the other hand, if prices are similar, or both phones are being offered for free at your carrier, then definitely go for the 2025. But I hope this video helped explain the differences between these two phones, but this is the Motorola Edge 2025 versus the Motorola Edge 2024. Take care and have a great rest of your day.